Welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Player Ranks. In this series, we rank various Yu-Gi-Oh! Themes based on your comments and suggestions. Come back every Tier List Tuesday to see an all-new installment of this series. Alright, what's up guys? Brand new video today. Today we are doing a tier list on summoning mechanics. So this is all of the summoning mechanics from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, if you want to see all these videos, we've created a playlist. So they're available all in one place. You could just watch them right before you go to sleep, whatever you do. Some people watch them at work, but you could just watch them directly. Let's not waste too much time. Let's get started. So first up, we have fusions. Now, the basic concept of fusion is you take two monsters and usually some sort of combination spell, and you make one monster that is stronger than the two monsters that you use separately to make them.
Hopefully stronger.
Hopefully stronger. That is the concept of fusion that has come out. And obviously they've changed this so many times over the years. It's been in meta, out of meta. Fusioning used to be absolutely useless, but over the years they've included so many different things. They've had things like metamorphosis, which cheated fusions. There's an entire history of Konami cheating fusions, which we'll get around to. But the basic concept is you combine two things. This has been meta relevant a ton of different times. You have regular polymerization fusions, fusion gate, dragon's mirror, contact fusions, which are obviously the Neos cards, and the Neos, the gladiator beast, stuff like that, contact fusions.
And then like archetype fusion spells that fuse from the deck.
So you've got stuff like Red Ice Fusion,
Shaddoll,
Destiny Fusion. You've got stuff like that. So there's so many different ways to fuse, and there's been so many times where it's been meta relevant. We've already named obviously so many. Right now the best deck in the game is a fusion deck. Shaddoll's just a little while ago was one of the best fusion decks. Branded was, just the last format was a great fusion deck. Honestly, fusions, there are so many good fusion decks. As a summoning mechanic, it's definitely one of the best. I think without a doubt it's an S tier. It's just been so representative in the last few, like after Gladiator Beast, fusions have basically been meta relevant for just such a long time. I will say this, personally, I don't like some of the design choices that they've taken with fusions recently. I don't like the fact that the whole concept of fusion is you take two things and you turn them into one thing. That's what fusion is. And I don't like cards like Thunder Dragon Colossus, for example, where you activate a card from your hand and then you activate a card from a Thunder Monster from your hand, and then you contribute a Thunder Monster, and then you can get a Thunder Dragon Colossus. I have no idea how, in any way, that's a fusion. Like, that's just not the concept of what a fusion is. I don't know how they get away with it. It's almost like Konami, just if they want to break a mechanic, they'll just break a mechanic. They'll break every concept behind the mechanic. If they want to make it good, they'll make it good. Another example is Runics. All of the runic fusions say like, two runic monsters. There's no main deck runic monsters whatsoever as of the recording of this video. There's no main deck runic monsters. They're all spells that let you summon the monsters directly from the deck. Runics could have been a Link archetype. They could have been Synchro archetype. They could have been any other archetype. They didn't have to be a fusion archetype. They could have been anything else. They don't even obey the laws of the mechanic whatsoever. It's a little bit actually frustrating. And then, of course, you've got, like, the fusion spells that send from deck, which are still kind of fusion spells, but again, they really are really strong, and they can sort of cheat around everything. You've also got things like Metamorphosis, Tribute a Monster, summon one with the same level from the fusion deck. It's almost like a ritual summon, but it's a fusion instead. You've got Instant Fusion, just like throws out a fusion. It seems like whenever they want to, they can just kind of cheat any sort of summoning mechanic, but fusions are definitely very, very strong.
And then they had what's it called? They had Predaplant,
Verde Anaconda, perfect example.
Yeah, you just ended on like you just made your board and then ended on whatever, like add on a Dragoon or mainly just Dragoon, but you could also add a
Phoenix Enforcer.
Yeah, Phoenix Enforcer.
But it's like, it's if they want to, they literally just, if they wanted, they just completely break their own rules. Which is kind of frustrating. I think fusions would be a lot more fair if they stuck to what they're supposed to do. The most recent example is of course Runics and Tearlaments. Tearlaments are just insane. When they get milled, you get to fuse. I don't even know how that even works. It doesn't even make sense. They get sent to graveyard and they turn into a fusion monster. That fusion monster mills more monsters, and then they get to fuse more monsters. It's completely and totally crazy.
But to be fair, they still follow the.
They still follow the guidelines better than the other stuff.
Yeah, they just threw out the spell.
Yeah, they just don't have any more spell. You don't have to actually play polymerization, but still, it's like that's just a very, very strong fusion mechanic. But like when they do stuff like Thunder Dragon Colossus, it's like, dude, how the hell is this a fusion? Like, I don't think anyone can explain how Thunder Dragon Colossus works as a fusion. It just doesn't even follow. It can't. The only thing it can even work as is a link monster, or an inherent summon from the hand. It's written like it was supposed to be on an effect monster that you played in the deck. But they were like, oh, this is kind of hard to summon. Let's make it a fusion monster.
And what's goofy is that like Thunder Dragons do have a fusion spell.
Yeah.
But the better part of the spell is the banish the search.
Yeah.
Rather than the actual fusion.
It makes no sense. Yeah, like I said, if they want to break a mechanic, they can break it. Next is flips. Flips suck. Like, they haven't been useful in years. They have been absolutely terrible. I really don't even know what to say. I mean, like, when's the last time one's been relevant? Subterror? No one uses flip decks. You have Prediction Princess in the last pack. It's a joke. Nobody plays it. Nobody plays that. There's a card that generically searches any flip monster. You play against shaddoll players, they'll be like, oh, I'm playing a flip deck. No, you're not. You're not even playing a flip deck. Everybody uses the effects of the monster. I just remember another thing for fusion. You've got the trap that fuses for shadolls.
Oh yeah.
That card is crazy. It's like the most random thing. It just gives you a window. But yeah, it's another thing. But yeah, shadolls are basically used for their fusion engine. You've got subterrors, which are probably one of the most pushed archetypes I've ever seen. The field spell flips things. The traps flip things. Everything flips everything. It completely disobeys the original laws of flip monsters, which is you're supposed to set it, and your opponent's supposed to attack into it, and then you're supposed to do something. The problem is that is just too slow for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It doesn't work. There are almost no decks playing flip effect monsters whatsoever. It's just not a good mechanic. Yeah, I mean, flips are terrible. I think they deserve to be in F tier.
I don't think F tier because
here we go.
Because even though they it is an inherently slow mechanic, but they have had support. They make it work. Like subterrors. They have
make it work.
Yeah, they make it work. They
make it work.
They flip your monsters, so they slow you down. But then at the same time, they're like flipping their monsters and getting effects. Guru searching every turn. It's the trap is like the trap flips them, right? Or is there
the trap? It has 4 effects, one of which is a flip. Yes.
Yeah, and then you have like the negates that flips. Like subterrors made it work pretty well, and then there's things like Sol and Luna. Book of Moon's a very strong card. You can
Book of Moon, I'll give you that, but the rest of it, you're unbelievable. I don't even know what to say. Subterrors.
Subterrors, yeah, and
subterrors. What are subterrors without Dragoon? It's Dragoon and Floodgates.
Yeah, but
flips. They don't flip anything.
They flip a lot.
Yeah,
one of their main
flip the monster so that they can activate Goes and Match and trap you. That's what they do.
One of their main disruptions is the Guru like flipping itself and then setting itself and then setting your monster and then it sets up for the hand trap.
I don't know. Well, listen, out of respect, I'll put it in D tier, but I strongly disagree.
And on top of that, the shaddoll monster that special sets from the deck.
Shadolls.
It's special sets from the deck.
It sets from the deck. Are you ever going to use that flip effect?
Yes.
Name a shaddoll flip effect.
The shaddoll beast. When you flip it, you draw 2, discard 1.
You draw 2, discard 1. They never do that.
They do that.
They never do that.
It's a very good effect. You get to draw 2 cards, activate a shaddoll monster when you discard it.
They have never done that. They've done that maybe once. They've done that maybe once in a duel. If they brick a shaddoll players, if they brick, they'll set a monster. And shaddoll beast is level 5.
You're
not going to tribute set.
No. The what's it
the
called?
one good shaddoll flip effect.
No.
You're not going to do it.
No, the wind one. She special sets any shaddoll.
Who, Falco or Wendy?
I don't remember. I think
Wendy?
it was Wendy. Yeah,
Wendy's the one that sets anything from the deck. You're not doing that. Who are you kidding?
Yes, you are.
And which effect is that? Not the flip effect.
The centigrade effect.
The centigrade effect. The centigrade effect. Exactly. Listen, flip effects are a disaster.
They come up, man.
They don't come up. They're an absolute disaster. They are a mess. Next is normal summon. Normal summon is sort of this of course is kind of like any summoning mechanic where kind of a monster gets an effect on normal summon. There's so many different ones. Every single archetype pretty much has one. This is your typical search card of the deck. In this case, we have Breaker here as an example. He obviously gets the counter and gets the out back row. But you also have stuff like
like black metal dragon combo starts.
Yeah, combo starters, black metal dragon. You have just basically any sort of combo starter that you need that comes on a normal summon. What's another one? Condemned Witch. That's a good one. You know, you search a forbidden spell, tag out next turn into something.
The spellbook guy.
Stratos. Every deck has a Stratos monster basically in it. You can basically, yeah, like I said, any deck basically has it kind of weaved in or built in, where you you just have this kind of like normal summon searcher. It's almost like a typical thing in the it's a typical like deck building thing that they have in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like when they create a new archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh, the first thing they include is like, oh, we're going to include one boss monster, we're going to include one normal summon searcher, we're going to add like one spell that searches. Like every like time they start a new archetype, that's one of the things that are present in every archetype. The only issue is some decks that are too normal summon reliant can be really bad, because if they like bounce your normal summon or banish your normal summon or
set it,
they don't, which they're not going to do. If they can out your normal summon in some manner, you basically lose. So if you're playing like Magical Musketeers, normal summon, and they bounce it, well, okay, that's it. Like that turns over. You can't go into the Link monster. You can't special summon. You're like it's case closed. So that's basically the issue with normal summoning, is sometimes they can be a little. I think B tier is probably fair for them.
Yeah.
Next is tribute summoning. This, of course, basically includes 3 major decks. You've got early tribute summoning, which is stuff like Jinzo, Summon Skull, things like that. But even then, honestly, most of the time you wanted to special summon those things anyway in some manner. Called by what's it called? Call of the Haunted, something like that.
Premature.
Monster Reborn, Premature Burial, Reasoning. You wanted to summon a lot of those cards, just bigger monsters using one of those fancy effects. Now that's for the older stuff. Then of course the Monarchs came out. Monarchs only get their effects when tribute summoned, and Monarchs are very good. They all have different effects. They can help back row, front row, monsters, set monsters. Of course. Here's another thing. The worst Monarch is the one that destroys set cards. I wonder why.
Which one, Mobius?
No, Mobius destroys spawn trap cards. The Rock Monarch, which you've probably never heard of because no one's ever heard of him, he destroys only set cards. Nobody ever plays him. I wonder why. I wonder why. Because set cards don't matter. Even then, and that was when set cards were common. They were common in the game, and they were terrible. But yes, you have the Mobius, for example, which is very good. So yeah, that era of tribute summoning. And then Monarchs, of course, got a structure deck. That was very good. And following up with that, what else? True Dracos, and more recently, a combination of normal summoning and tribute summoning, which are, of course, the flooandereez. Possibly the most annoying archetype to ever exist. They do everything totally different than every other archetype in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's what makes them so good. It's not even that they're that good. It's that they do everything completely differently than everybody else. So it makes them better. They can play D-Shifter because they don't care if things get banished. If they get Max Seed, it doesn't matter. If you summon a barrier statue against them, it doesn't matter. If you stop them from special summoning anyway, it doesn't matter. A lot of cards, hand traps like Imperm are getting cut, which helps them. Like everything that normal Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks lose to, they don't lose to. So it actually makes them a better deck because they're so different. That's the best part of the tribute summon strategy, is that it's so different from modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Because most decks just want to spit out and special summon as much as possible. This is the only strategy that doesn't really want to do that, which makes it in a certain ways better because it's so different. So honestly, I think probably high B tier is probably somewhere around there. It's just the only issue is there's no representation. It's literally like 4 decks. It's like Monarchs again, flooandereez, and True Draco. True Draco's hit so badly on the ban list, it's virtually unplayable. Diagrams at 1, Master's Piece is banned. They bring back 1 True Draco card every 6 months from like 3. It goes from like 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, and the deck still does nothing. It's actually quite unfortunate. Yeah, the only deck they have right now is flooandereez, and everyone, if everyone got their wish, they wouldn't even be in the metagame. Next is Ritual Summoning. This one is another one that's kind of controversial. So ritual summoning is weird because, again, the basic rules of ritual summoning are you have a ritual spell, and then you have the cost monsters, which are the levels that you need to give up in order to ritual summon, and then you need the ritual monster in hand. So just off the bat, you need to have at least 3 cards in hand to ritual summon one monster, which at its core is not good. But of course, if Konami wants to make an archetype good, they will make an archetype good. They have, for example, the Digin releaser of rituals, which is if you use a ritual if you use it as material, summon a ritual monster, your opponent cannot special summon, which that effect is just insane. And then, of course, you have all of the ritual cards that just flat out cheat the entire ritual system whatsoever. So you have stuff like Necro's Kaleidoscope, which lets you ritual summon using a monster from your extra deck. You have things like the Drytrons, which they don't even ritual summon based on levels anymore. They just ritual summon based on attack, which is another issue within itself. It just completely turns everything on its head. It really, like it said, if Konami wants to break an archetype or break a summoning mechanic and get away from whatever the concept or the initial concept is, like if we're talking about magic rule or ritual summoning, ritual summoning is probably down here. It's just so terrible. But since they've chosen to break it in so many ways, you have pre-preparation of rites.
Yeah, they have some of the best support when it comes to getting like
Generic.
you said, there's you just need so much, but they have a lot of like +1 cards, like preparation and pre-prep, the incantations.
Yep.
Like they have a lot going on. Yeah.
Every Drytron's a +1. Every incantation's a +1 at least. Actually, might even be a +2. Yeah, because they summon a monster from the hand. They summon themselves. They summon a monster from the deck, and then they search a spell or monster. So they're a +2. Pre-preparation of rites is a +1 that basically gets everything you need for ritual summon. Preparation of rites is another +1. Adds back and adds from deck. They have so many +1s. If they wanted to be good, they would. I mean, like, imagine there's so much broken support there, and for the most part, they're really not even that good. Like the best one we've seen recently is Drytron. Before Drytron, what do we have? Probably Necros.
Yeah, Necros.
It really is. It's a handful of decks, and it's whenever they want to do it. So it's kind of weird. It's really, all of these mechanics are really up to Konami. Whenever they want to break something, they can just break it. But it's really up to them.
Well, it wasn't broken, but I think Megaliths is worth mentioning.
Megaliths are good, but not broken by any means. But they're good.
But they were like kind of crazy when like Block Dragon Union Carrier.
You know, people said that. I didn't see people play that. That's the thing.
I actually went across it once.
You went across it? No, like sometimes those weird decks, you don't know what you're doing. You imperm the wrong card, and that's it. You're just sitting there watching a combo for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens.
But if
you don't know what to imperm, if you don't have enough like knowledge about the deck.
It's funny you say that. I was dueling against them, and I had imperm, and I impermed the wrong thing during my turn.
Yeah.
But then when I was reading the cards, I realized if I just impermed like the quick effect, like ritual summon from the deck or whatever.
Yeah.
During the standby phase, like he would have had nothing.
The Megalith card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Megalith. That's another crazy thing. Yeah, the ritual summon from the deck. That thing is crazy. What else do they have? They have like advanced ritual art. Lets you send a material from the deck. Again, if they want to bypass, this is the great thing about it. If they want to bypass whatever they want, they can make any summoning mechanic on this list good. It's up to them. Out of nowhere, they can make Geminis good. They can make anything here. They can make flip effects good and make me agree with you. Because they can make any summoning mechanic here good at this drop of a hat just by giving them broken support. In this case, like I said, advanced ritual art, summon from the deck. High ritual art, summon from the deck. Like, it's crazy. So honestly, I think it's about C. Like I don't think it's crazy, but it's had a few really good. It's had a few tier 0 formats, which is more than Flip Effects can say.
It was also funny. I just thought of some really good ritual monsters off the top of my head. Are monsters you don't even ritual summon, like Sorvis and the Illusion from Dark Magician.
Yeah, Illusion Magician.
Yeah, they don't even like. They're not even like proper like ritual monsters. You just use them for like random nonsense.
Yeah. But that's them. Next is spirits. Oh my god. Spirits are a disaster. Spirits are an absolute disaster. No one see. When's the last time you saw a spirit monster?
Amato Iwata.
Except for Amato Iwata. When is the last time you saw a spirit monster? I was gonna say that you got there before I did. But I was gonna say that Amato Iwata in True Draco, Amato Iwata in like Mystic Mind decks. Outside of that, when is the last time you saw a spirit monster?
Shinobirds.
When's the last time you saw? I mean, I'm just gonna ignore that because we're not gonna do the foolishness. That's just a joke, and it's a cruel joke because I like the deck. It's a cruel joke. When is the last time you realistically saw a spirit monster?
Well, there was a goat tournament. No one
There's
saw
a goat
Tsukiyomi.
tournament. And that's the thing. Spirit monsters are a problem. The basic concept of spirits is they return to the hand at the end of the turn, which in old Yu-Gi-Oh was decent. Also, the majority of spirit monsters cannot be special summoned, with the exception of the newest spirit monster, which specifically special summons itself by by banishing a spirit monster out of the graveyard. And then there's another spirit, and then there's of course the shinobirds. Outside of them, other spirit monsters cannot be special summoned. So you've got some decent effects. That's the frustrating part about spirit monsters. You have decent effects on them, but although they have decent effects, they return to the hand. Some of the spirit monsters are tribute monsters. And the problem is some of the better ones have really good effects. Something like Yamada Dragon, things like Hinotoma Soul, which one is that? I forget the name, but it's the guy with the fiery hair. But Yamada Dragon's a perfect example. When you inflict battle damage to your opponent, you draw cards until you have 6 cards. But he's a true tribute monster that returns to your hand at the end phase. You put all these resources into summon him, you attack, you draw these cards, and then he goes back to your hand anyway. Like, it's pointless. Like, they return themselves to the hand. And in older Yu-Gi-Oh, that was actually pretty good because, for example, Yatagarasu, you could attack your opponent's life points, it goes back to your hand, they can't draw, and they can't out the Yatagarasu because they're returned back to the hand. So it can be a little bit frustrating. Same thing with Tsukiyomi. Normal summon, book, attack, get it back to hand. Next turn, you can do it again. It's just an endless Tsukiyomi, just like Madara always wanted. But the problem is, again, that is the biggest issue, is that they return themselves to the hand. They can't be special summoned. They're extremely slow. I don't think they're very good at all. I'd say probably F tier. They've had such minimal representation, with the exception of Amato Iwado. And you know, I said this a long time ago. We did a tier list, I think, a year ago now, where we rated every banned card. And I don't know if you were there for that one, but I said that they could bring back Yatagarasu, and it would have no meta impact whatsoever. And some of the comments were like, "You can't. If you bring that back, it'll ruin everything. It'll destroy Yu-Gi-Oh." They brought it back. Has anybody ever used it against you?
No.
Nobody has ever used it against you because the card sucks. The card sucks. It's not good. It was good specifically years ago because it was extremely specific format where you had Chaos Emperor and Chaos Emperor, Sengan. You had all these cards that don't even exist in the game today in their current form because obviously they're all rotted. And I told people you could bring that back to 8 and it wouldn't matter. You could let people play 40 card decks of Yatagarasu and it would still suck. And I was right. These are probably somewhere in F tier. Honestly, again, Konami at the drop of a hat can break any mechanic. So I might be eating my words a year from now when they drop the most broken spirit support in the world. But as of right now, spirits suck. Next is inherent summons. So inherent summons are a little bit, they're not effect summons. So they're not like, for example, the tier limit monsters are effect summons. Galaxy Soldier is an effect summon. It's something that starts a chain. These are summons that don't start a chain. So stuff like Chaos Dragons, BLS, Cyber Dragon, basically any summon that just puts itself onto the board. Those are the kind of summons that we're talking about. The ones where you have a cost to summon and then you just summon it, or you meet a condition to summon it. Like I said, these were really popularized right around Invasion of Chaos, when the Chaos monsters started coming out. When a lot of those monsters that are like Gigantus, for example, came out. Banish one Earth, Aqua Spear, Banish one Water. What else is there? Like I said, Cyber Dragon, which GOAT players swear ruined the game. I ruined the game. They're so dramatic. They are so dramatic. What does a Cyber Dragon really do against GOAT?
Attack.
That's it. What do they do? Like, what are you afraid of? Because they say, oh, you know, it beats Parshath.
Oh,
so what? So what? Listen, so that's basically the situation there. Honestly, inherent special summons are, I think, some of the best special summons because in a lot of ways they don't start a chain and they don't activate an effect. So sometimes your opponent has a board, like let's say for example they'll have like a Herald of the Arclight. You special summon your inherent summon out. It's usually a pretty big monster and you just attack over the Herald of the Arclight, or you attack over one of their negates. A perfect example of this is Dino Wrestler Pankatrops. That's like a perfect example. It's an inherent summon. It special summons itself onto the board for free. You get to attack over one of your opponent's monsters, and you get to pop a card. That's a perfect example of an inherent summon. It does not start a chain. Your opponent can't really react unless they have like a trap hole, or like either a trap hole or like a judgment or something. But they really can't, like, it's not an effect, so they can't be like, oh, Borload negate, Boral Sword. I'm sorry, Borload Savage Dragon negate. Like, they can't do it. Like Baron to negate. Like, they can't. It isn't. It doesn't start a chain. So these I think are pretty good. Would you agree?
Yeah.
On that one, I think we're both in agreement. You play Cyber Dragons, you like it. So probably like A tier. I think it's one of the better summoning mechanics here. Next, we've got Geminis. You like Geminis too? I hate Geminis. I think it is the worst thing that Konami ever created. It is, I don't know if they had a lapse in judgment. Maybe they hired a brand new intern. They said, I don't know who they hired. I don't know who they hired to make Geminis, because it was one of the worst ideas, I think, in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know how. So basically, the simple concept behind Geminis is you basically, the monsters come out as normal monsters, but you can normal summon them again. Remember, you only have one normal summon in Yu-Gi-Oh! Per turn. You can normal summon them again, and then they get an effect. That is slower than flip summoning. That is that bad. It is, and I don't know why you like these. That is one of the slowest things I could even imagine. I don't even know what, like, I don't know how they came up with this. And on top of that, most Gemini monsters suck. Most of their effects, there's a handful that aren't that bad, but, which you'll probably bring up, of course. But the majority are absolutely terrible. You've got, like, this one's, for example, is one of the most playable ones ever. Neos Alias. If you normal, so you summon it, it's 1900 attack, and it's an elemental hero Neos Alias. But you can wait an entire turn. In the following turn, you can normal summon the same monster again. Don't summon a new monster and put more board presence on the field. You can normal summon this same monster again, and now he counts as elemental hero Neos. How exciting. Then you've got even stupider effects. You've got stuff like that tuner monster. The one that's, it's just a regular monster. But you can normal summon it, and then you can make it a tuner the following turn. Oh, how great. How useful that is. There's other ones that, oh, okay, if you normal summon it again, it gets piercing. This thing is a one tribute monster. Who needs piercing? You tribute it, you wait, and then you summon it again. How many turns do you have to do to get a monster with piercing? You have that. I mean, this is just one of the worst mechanics to ever come out of Yu-Gi-Oh! The only good monsters ever are maybe Illblood and Gigaplant. And then there's the Butterfly, and that's about it. And then they have a fusion monster, super random. Again, when Konami wants to break something they can, it's usually fusion. They have a fusion monster that makes all Geminis have their original effect, which, you know, is the way they should have been in the first place. They should have just had an effect without all this stupid waiting. And of course, they've got a bunch of, like, double summon, the Gemini double summon. They've got all these cards to allow you to summon twice. But again, wouldn't it be easier if you could just summon a monster and already has the effect? It's absolutely terrible.
Now, I see your point, but cards of every, like, mechanic, they always have, like, bad cards. Like, you look at, like, those
so
early...
name some good ones. Name some good Geminis.
Well, you named some of them already, the Illblood and the Gigaplant. But the Red Eyes Geminis, excluding Meteor,
I was gonna say, if you brought up Meteor, we were gonna have a problem.
He's weird. He's like the only like protection in Red Eyes, but it's just not worth it. But the what's it called? But the other two, the Makiyu like effect on Archfiend to like blow up their monsters. It's a pretty solid effect. Every turn, it's basically like a Raigeki. As long as their defense is less than 2,500, it's pretty solid every turn. And then
with the Red Eyes.
And then on top of that, the Black Flare, every turn an additional 2,400. Sometimes you don't even need it past the what's it called? Past the turn that you're using it. You're usually finishing them off, and you don't have to summon it and then summon it the next turn. You have like stuff like special summon, like traps and stuff like that. Bring them back during your opponent's turn, and the Geminis have like Cataclysm Field. It's a pretty solid card. It's a field spell, special summons a Gemini, and then you can normal summon it.
Cataclysm Field.
It's a pretty solid card.
Like I said, if Konami wants to, they can push anything. They can make anything good. But Gemini suck. I'm sorry. It doesn't even make sense. They're just effect monsters that you can't use the same turn you summon them.
Well, Cataclysm Field you can.
Cataclysm Field makes it so you can do it that turn. But I believe it's only one monster. It's not a continuous effect.
I think it's like, I think you can do like one monster every turn. I don't remember.
One monster every turn. Oh, what a saving grace.
Now I will admit some of the effects are kind of lackluster. I think if they made
a lot of them, most of them are.
I think if they made the effects crazier than like a regular monster,
that's the only way they do it. That's the only way you can make it decent.
I think it'd be a lot more fair and balanced, a lot more interesting too.
Because right now they're embarrassing. Some of those Gemini monsters, it's literally like, oh, you Gemini summon this, you gain 200 attack. Who the hell cares? You gain 400 attack. The monster's 1600 attack. It gains 400 attack. You waited a turn. What did you gain?
Attack.
It's terrible.
And
you play too much.
And then on top of that, Gemini Spark is a really good card.
Oh boy,
that's a really good card. Quick play, pop a card, and then I think you draw one too. Or am I tripping?
You need a Gemini monster though.
Yeah.
Yeah, a monster that is Gemini summoned.
No, it doesn't have to be Gemini summoned.
It doesn't have to be Gemini.
It's just a Gemini monster.
Listen, it sucks. The monsters suck. There's no way around it. Geminis are a disaster. They've been the only time they're useful is usually for their stats, like this guy. Ill Blood is useful. There's a handful. They haven't been useful in years. When's the last time somebody summoned a Gemini monster? It might have been longer than a Spirit monster.
I summoned a Gemini monster.
We're putting it in F. This is it's a disaster. It might have been longer than a Spirit monster. This is by far the worst thing that Konami has ever created in terms of what's on this list here. It's a disaster. Next is what do we have here? Synchro summoning. Synchro summoning is the most skill intensive of all of the summoning mechanics by far. There's the least amount of Konami goofiness in synchro summoning. So with fusions, like we've discussed before, when they want to, they can just make them broken. With rituals, they give them a bunch of +1s, and the deck can go like +8 if they want to. Same thing with fusions, like I said. When they have stupid things like Thunder Dragon Colossus that aren't even fusion monsters, they can make them out of nowhere. This card on the synchro summoning, you see the least amount of tomfoolery in synchro summoning. You still have to summon, even if like the most tomfoolery that I can think of is Sword Soul. Because Sword Soul will like summon a token that is a tuner, and then you have the monster. And that is probably like the easiest the most like they cheat around the concept of synchro summoning. But at the end of the day, you're still getting a tuner, a monster, you're adding up to the levels, and you're synchro summoning from the extra deck. The other thing about this mechanic is you have to place some amount of tuners in your deck. Now fortunately, Konami has been randomly choosing to make certain cards tuners, even though they in every way don't really make sense to be tuners. Like the new Cartesia, for example. Cartesia, she's a tuner. Her effect is to fusion summon a monster, but she's a tuner. In a deck, Albaz, that doesn't have any synchros. There's a lot going on. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes they'll make random cards tuners. They push it a little bit, not as much as fusions and other stuff, but they push it sometimes. But yeah, they're a little bit odd. For example, all the hand traps are tuners. Every single one of the good hand trap. Well, almost all of the hand traps are tuners, right? You have like Droll.
All the zombie girls.
Yeah, you have Effect Veiler as a tuner. Droll is not, for example. But Gamma. Yeah, Gamma is a tuner. But yeah, when they want to, again, they've been making a lot more monsters tuners, which is actually helpful because at least to a certain degree, you can have some generic synchro monsters in your extra deck. Now, what I will say, a huge drawback to synchros is most of the time you're either building a synchro deck or you're not playing any synchros. Most of the time. Because the thing about links, see, with fusions, you have contact fusions, you have super poly, and you have super poly, you have instant fusion, you have a lot of ways to cheat fusions. If you're not building, and same thing with XYZs are generic. If you play, generally most decks have similar levels, you can XYZ summon. Generally, link monsters are just generic, just period. Synchros, you have to know in advance if you're building a synchro deck or not. Because if you're not building a synchro deck, you might play one synchro monster. You might play one Baron de Fleur. If you have some way to make, like, if you have like a level 7 and a Ghost Girl, you might play a Baron de Fleur. If you have, for example, if you have like a Ghost Girl and a level 5, you can play Psyframe Lord Omega, but or Borreload Savage Dragon. But generally speaking, you have to plan in advance to summon a synchro monster. They don't come out very easily otherwise.
I think one of the most skill intensive things about synchros is having to you have to have like specific kind of like combos to get the right monsters in the field for the right levels,
right tuners.
Some monsters that specifically need certain tuners.
Yeah. And then some of them will be like a tuner, 2 monsters that are non-tuners. Sometimes 2 tuners, 1 tuner synchro, like Crystal Wing. It's by far the most complicated, the most complex out of all of them. It really does take the most skill to play a synchro deck, unless you're playing Sword Soul. Sword Soul is very easy. Sword Soul is the same combo.
Built-in autopilot. Yeah.
It's like an autopilot deck. You don't have to. You look at your hand. It's like you're getting a Baron de Fleur. You're getting a
Chen-Ying.
Chen-Ying.
Not Chen-Ying.
Xiao Feng.
Level 8.
The level 8 Chen-Ying, and then you're getting Blackout face down. You can close your eyes and do that by accident. You just throw out random cards and you'll end up with that board. But like a real synchro deck, like Black Wings or a
the Stardust.
Stardust, which is now a huge like disaster, but there's so many different archetypes in there.
Yeah.
It's like Synchron Junk. There's so much going on.
Actually, it's pretty insane seeing you can tell how skilled a player is when they summon that the level 5 synchro that summons a bunch of synchrons from the deck. You can tell how good of a player is based off of like what board they make, because sometimes they just make like one red supernova dragon and just end on that, but sometimes they'll build the board with 5 cosmic blazars, and it's just like, it's like, what are you supposed to do? Like,
that's
pretty insane.
That's kind of it is the most skill intensive one, and Konami has cheated the least for them. I will say that, because other ones, they just broke their own mechanics. With this one, they seem to stick to it. They'll just give them better tuners, but that's about it. Now, the few times that they did cheat with it is Krystron, which summons a tuner from the deck. Which, again, does that really cheat it? I don't think so. It just summons a tuner from the deck.
Well, it summons what's it called? A synchro tuner from the extra deck.
And it's you're right. The second effect.
I thought you were talking about that.
Yeah. The first effect doesn't really cheat it out, but yes, the summoning from the extra deck of a tuner, that sort of does cheat it out. Then you have, of course, the Krystron tuner. A lot of the tuners, the synchro tuners, actually allow you to synchro summon during your opponent's turn, which that part is actually pretty cool. Again, it doesn't really cheat anything out. Like, you still need to get the right amount of levels, the tuners. You still have to have the math right to even be able to do it. The only time they've really ever done it is Krystron Hackla Fibrax, and that card is, of course, banned anyway.
And then they had Ultimaya Zolkin, which is a very weird
Ultimaya
card.
Zolkin, which is even more difficult than a regular.
Yeah.
It's more difficult than a regular synchro summon.
But it pays off a lot more.
It does pay off, because then you can basically cheat to summon Crystal Wings from your extra deck without having to do all of the funny business.
Which is one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah. Crystal Wing is great. He can be a little too difficult to summon sometimes. Like, I want to play him in more decks. I don't think he's even that broken. He outs a lot of boss monsters, which I really like. He outs a lot of boss monsters that your opponent will play, which obviously I like that about the card, but the problem is he's just so complicated to summon unless you're cheating him out with the Zolkin or
playing Wind Witches.
Wind Witches, or if you are playing Wind Witches or Zolkin, that's about it. Like, for the most part, he's actually kind of difficult to summon. So I'd say synchro summoning, it sucks. This is probably the worst synchro summoning has been in a very long time. Right now, it's probably the worst it's been. It was pretty good just a few formats ago, but again, that had to do a lot with Krystron. Krystron summoning during your opponent's turn. You summon Wonder Magician.
And also, what's it called? And the Mecha Phantom Beast cheating out tokens.
Yeah, Mecha Phantom Beast cheating out tokens. Link Cross cheating out tokens. Like, the thing about synchro summoning is synchro summoning more than any of the others. It's synchro summoning and links that really benefit from tokens. But yeah, this is like, I'd say it's pretty good, but not like too great. I'd say probably somewhere in B tier.
Yeah, some of the best boss monsters, I'd say, are just really hard to summon.
Yeah.
But they're synchros. Like Like Cosmic Blaze, like those like level like 10, 12
yeah.
synchros, they're like insane. They have like 20 effects, like negate and banish. They just do so much.
Yep, those are really good. Next is XYZ. XYZ generally is a very, very good and fair mechanic. Throughout most of the lifespan of XYZ, they've been used to, or Xseed, they've been used to, basically, they've been used for toolbox. That's the majority of them. They were toolbox monsters. You have Diamond Direwolf, Diamond King Crab, like just Castell, Abyss, the Honor Arc, Giant Hand, like
Utopia Lightning,
Utopia Lightning, Utopia Double. Like for the most part, they're a bunch of they were Baguska, Abyss Dweller. Like for the most part, they have been kind of like end board or like utility cards. So either they're Floodgating, True King of all Calamities. They basically, you look at your deck, most decks are built around a certain level. Some decks obviously are not, but most decks are built around a certain level, or at the very least can put 2 monsters on the board with the same level. And then based on those monsters, you can pick whichever XYZ monster or Xseed monster is the most useful for you. Obviously, if you play level 4s, you play like a Baguska and like another level 4 that's decent, Tornado Dragon, for example. And then if you need to, you can go into it. Of course, just like any other summoning mechanic, Konami occasionally decides to totally cheat the system. You have, for example, what I would call fair cheating, which is the rank up cards, which are spell cards that go into higher levels. I think those are completely fair. You have to search the rank up spell, you have to activate it to get into a higher level. It's alright. It's
Sometimes
fair.
they have costs, like pay like half your life points, stuff like that.
That's the Raid Raptor one, pays half your life points, but you get it essentially for free. It lets you go into a Cyber Dragon Infinity, which is decent for the deck. But then, of course, just like fusions, you have situations where Konami will just straight up cheat the mechanic. So you've got, for example, Zodiacs. Nothing about Zodiacs makes any sense. The concept of an Xseed summon is you take 2 monsters with the same level and create 1 new monster. Zodiacs will allow you to normal summon any Zodiac monster and then overlay 15 times over that same monster to go into Borbo to summon from deck. Not Borbo to summon from deck. The Tiger Mortar to summon from deck. Then you go into Broadbull to search any beast warrior monster from the deck, and then you go into Trident to be able to pop. Like, it's so outrageous that you can do that off of 1 monster. It completely breaks the mechanic. I don't know why they do that sort of thing. It's weird. Again, if they want to make any of these summoning mechanics, if they want to make spirits and Geminis broken, they can make them broken tomorrow. They just have to break their own rules on these mechanics, so they can break them whenever they want to. But generally speaking, they're pretty good.
Oh, you forgot to mention Dengirsu. That's a weird one.
Yeah, that's the one you can just overlay on top of a Galatea, right?
Yeah. You use a Link monster, and then on top of that, I don't even think Orcus have a level 8 monster in the deck.
They don't. They just break the mechanic whenever they feel like it. What's another? Sprite. Sprite's a weird one.
Oh yeah, because they use Link too.
You can overlay using a Link. Links don't have levels.
It's strange.
How does that make any sense? Again, if they want to break a mechanic, they can break a mechanic whenever they want to. You can use a Link 2 to summon a monster, to summon an XYZ monster. Like, it's outrageous. A monster with no levels can be used to summon a monster requires 2 monsters with the same level. It's unbelievable. It really doesn't make any sense. They can make spirit monsters. If they wanted to, they could make a spirit monster tomorrow that says it can special summon itself from the deck and it can attack directly, and then it has Yatagras's effect. They can make that tomorrow, and then they could make it broken if they wanted to. They can make Gemini monsters. They can make Gemini monsters, new Gemini monsters that can use the Gemini effect the same turn they're summoned. Like, they can do whatever they want. And in these cases, when they break their own mechanic, personally, I don't really like it. But the reality is, it's a part of the situation. I think these are around A tier, probably high A tier. Generally speaking, Xseed monsters are very good.
I don't think we mentioned Zeus either.
Zeus is another one that just breaks. It's 2 level 12 monsters, right? Or is it 3 level 12 monsters?
I don't even know. But
It's
that's, like,
level
impossible.
12 monsters. But if any XYZ monster battles, if a level 1 a rank 1 Exceed monster battles, you can special summon Zeus over an Exceed monster. And the ruling on that gets a little crazy too. If your opponent's Exceed monster battles during your battle phase, you can make an Exceed monster in your main phase too, and then overlay a Zeus on top of it. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It just requires an Exceed monster to battle, and then you can throw down a Zeus. Why? Why is that how you make that monster? Why? How does that make any sense?
And I think if they made like a deck that can actually summon him, I think it'd be kind of insane. Like turn 1 making a Zeus.
Yeah, 2 level 12s.
I can't even fathom that. Can you imagine?
That'd be really. Could you make a 6 material Zeus on turn 1?
Can you imagine that? Like sitting
board
down to
wipe,
duel, and then like they just have a Zeus turn 1. That just doesn't sound real.
Yeah.
That's like special summoning Cyber Dragon turn 1.
Zeus, I heard Zeus was in Duel Links, which doesn't have a main phase 2. So you can't ever summon it. I don't know why they do this. It's the stupid stuff. It's just like that. Like the Crystal Beast Turtle, the one that can only switch a monster to defense mode in main phase 2. This is the same situation. I don't know why they do this stuff. It's so foolish. They put Zeus into Duel Links. It has an effect to summon itself in main phase 2. There's no main phase 2.
I hope that's not real.
I heard that. I hope they were. I hope they were lying to me. But yeah, that's a disaster. Next is Pendulums.
I know very little about Pendulums, but I remember they were around when I first started, and it's just too crazy of a summoning mechanic. Everything they have is just like everything just goes plus. You get to flood the board with as many monsters. You outsummon your opponent if they're not playing Pendulums easily, and then on top of that, they have all these. They have weird like they get destroyed. They get to search and summon, and then something was destroyed, so effect activates, and then they have and then their extract becomes like a third hand. It's such a strange like summoning mechanic. It's the only one that also has they don't go to graveyard from the field. They go to the extra deck, which is just really really weird, and it fools around with a lot of like laws of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, it doesn't really make sense having face up extra deck cards. It's a very broken archetype, and they've constantly tried to like limit it. Like, they made Electromite. Electromite was insane. They banned it, and they're still really strong like Pendulum decks even after he got hit. Like, there was the counter, the spell counter dudes, and Endymions were pretty strong for a while, and then randomly they'll have Pendulum Monsters that are not in Pendulum decks, like Lunalights, Predaplants, that are really good. It's too broken of a mechanic. And then with Lynx, they limited it. They with the extra deck summoning, so you have to summon to the Link zones, but even still, it feels like it's not been slowed down, because you can still summon as many as you want from your hand as long as you have the zones. And what's it called? I don't know the Pendulum Monsters by names, because there's just too much to read. But they also have mixes of everything. There's synchros, there's fusions, and then they have a really good fusion monster. They have Odd Eyes Vortex, and then they have synchros. They can make any synchro monster. They can make a Borderlord Savage if they want. They have Pendulum Monsters. They have literally everything that you can possibly think of. They even had XYZs. They used to go into
everything.
Yeah, they used to go into the what's it called, the rank 5 or 6 that would negate a spell. They do the most, to say the least.
I mean, with Pendulums, you got to bring up the original Pendulum mechanics. They changed the board.
Oh yeah,
they changed the board. A lot of people forget that. A lot of newer players don't know that. Those zones, those extra spawn trap card zones where you have to activate Pendulums, those didn't exist. It used to be you had 2 Pendulum zones. So you had 5 spawn trap card zones and then 2 Pendulum zones. It used to be insane. And Pendulums used to be able to special summon all of the monsters from your extra deck. like all of your face-up Pendulum Monsters. You didn't have to just summon specifically to the extra monster zone in a place where a Link monster points to. There's a reason why Konami only, why Master Rule 4 only applies to Pendulum Monsters. They took off the restriction for fusions. You can summon fusions wherever you want. You can summon them directly into the main monster zone. They took off the restriction for Exceeds. They took off the restriction for Synchros. They did not take that restriction off for specifically Pendulum Monsters, and there's a very good reason why that's the case. Because, like you said, that entire summoning mechanic is just broken. It's like having a third hand. And every single turn, you basically have like a soul charge. As long as you keep those scales around, you have a soul charge every single turn. You have summon every card from your hand and summon every single card from your extra deck. It is just too broken. And a lot of people say, oh, Konami hates pendulums. Listen, they made a mistake. That archetype's insane. It's insane. You can summon everything from your extra deck. You can summon everything from your hand. How the hell do you not nerf that?
And then they have some of the most like insane search cards. Like it'll just be like
unreal.
It'll be like pop this scale, search any pendulum, any pendulum card.
Skullcrobat Joker, any Perform Pal, Magician, this, that. There's a list of things you can search. You can search like 4 archetypes with 1 card. And he activates on normal, I believe, or special summon. You know what counts as a special summon? A pendulum summon. And it's insane.
And then stuff like Pendulum Call.
Pendulum Call.
You get to search 2, discard 1. You're discarding what's his name? The Darkworm?
Yeah. Darkworm.
Yeah. Special summon himself, and then he searches on summon.
Darkworm's insane too.
It's just
he's like a super plus one. You send him to the graveyard, summon him back for free, and then search for free, and you get a 0 scale.
Yeah.
You get a free low scale or a high scale. It's up to you. But it's insane. It's insane. You have Zephyras. There's so many different pendulum decks that are absolutely insane. And like I said, if your opponent doesn't get rid of those scales, you basically have to summon you summon everything back every single turn. The main drawback to this, the pendulums, I'd say one of the biggest drawbacks to pendulums is you basically need to have a full hand to play. Because if you don't have a full hand, you can't put a lot of things onto the board, and then you can't start going plus. And then the other thing with pendulums, their other weakness is their recovery sometimes can really suck. Because if they've got like, if they go first and your opponent breaks your board and they leave 1 pendulum scale on your board, you're cooked. You're basically cooked. There's nothing you can do. Unless you can specifically draw, and not like you have a low scale left and you draw a high scale and activate and summon 1 monster from your extra. Unless you can do that very specific chain of things, you're basically done, which is a little bit frustrating. Especially since, like I said, they nerfed it so much. You used to be able to summon out your entire extra deck all over again, but now, thank God, they made it a lot worse. And it's definitely a lot more fair for that. Also, they hit Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, but honestly, they've hit all of those Link 2s that were really good. They've hit the
Nightmare Goblin.
Yeah, Nightmare Goblin. Yeah, the Predaplant. They hit the Predaplant, Crystron, the Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. They've hit all of the cheating cards basically that have existed. So yeah, I think Pendulums overall is probably like an A tier.
I don't know, man. I think S tier.
S tier. It's been nerfed.
It's been nerfed, but it's like there's still so many crazy cards. It's just like if they get like 1 more like enabler, like Electromite of some kind. If they get like just 1 random card.
You're talking about what ifs. I'm talking about what's going on right now. They're not in the metagame. They haven't been in the metagame in months.
That's true, but
they just got new support, and they got some pretty good support. The new Draco monsters. Those monsters are pretty good, and that's not enough. When you nerf an archetype, when you nerf a summoning mechanic as much as none of the summoning mechanics on this list have been nerfed except for pendulums. Not one. Especially not Geminis. None of them have been nerfed as much as nothing here has been, technically speaking. Fusion, Synchro, and Exceed were nerfed with Master Rule 4 and Pendulums. Pendulums are the only one that still have to live with that nerf. They're the only ones here that have gotten nerfed. They haven't been meta relevant essentially since Heavy Metal Foes Electromite got banned. They're living in a cave. They're trying to see the light. They're not around.
I don't know, man. There's just too many. There's too many good pendulum cards that it's like it's all there. Like all the staples are there. Like the setup is there. They just need a little something.
Oh.
They need a little push.
I mean,
maybe
is why we have them in A tier.
I
The
mean,
little push puts them from A to S. I agree with you.
that's fair. But
It's a disaster.
I think maybe the pendulum players, maybe they've all given up and they've stopped reading the billions of paragraphs that are on pendulum cards.
Anyone with a right mind would.
I think if one of them sat down and read them all, I think they'd be able to make the craziest deck in Yu-Gi-Oh. But no one has the time and the skill set to read all of them and understand them all and memorize them all.
A tier is more than fair for where they're at right now.
Top of A tier.
No, right? They're better than Inherent Summons. We'll leave them there. That's more than fair. All right, so that's Pendulum Summoning. Let's continue here. Next, we've got Links. Links are insane. Links are the most generic out of all of them. Every single deck runs a Link. Even if you play a deck, Links have essentially replaced Exceed Monsters as the generic staples of all of the, like toolbox. Yeah, you have Nightmare Griffin, Unicorn, IP.
Griffin doesn't.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Griffin.
Cerberus.
Phoenix,
and
and Unicorn. That's what I meant to say.
Ones. They used to run Cerberus, but like, I kind of realized how bad he was.
Yeah, so the ones they basically play are Phoenix, Unicorn, IP, and some sort of win the game against your opponent once. So things like, for example, Access Code, a Boral Sword, Borreload, depending on what year of Yu-Gi-Oh you're talking about. Every single year, it seems like they come out with a new, better Link 4 than the other Link 4s. But basically, yes, this is by far the best of all of the toolbox. Links are just super generic. Usually, it's just like 4 monsters, 2 effect monsters, 3 effect monsters. It's insane. You can use tokens. You can do whatever you want with them. They don't require tuners. They don't require similar levels. You don't have to break them because they're already pretty broken. You literally don't have to do anything else. There's no reason to even cheat them out. There are cards that let you summon during your opponent's turn, Link summon during your opponent's turn, but again, you don't have to do more than just summon during your opponent's turn. That's good enough. Like, you don't have to, like, oh, this one Link 1 monster turns into a Link 4 monster, despite what some people have said. You basically, yeah, it's just a very simple summoning mechanic. It's probably one of the best to ever be released. And for a while, they needed to nerf all of the other summoning mechanics when they released Links because they weren't quite good enough, because they created Master Rule 4 where you have to like connect to the extra monster zones. But obviously, since then, it hasn't been an issue anymore. Since they've changed it back to you can basically summon monsters everywhere except for Pendulum Monsters. But yeah, I think Links are very, very strong. Probably one of the best things on this list.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that was rough was that early on in the Link format, the Link monsters were terrible. It was like boss monsters were like Decode Talker, or like what was it, like the like Miss Starboy kind of ones, you know, like the attribute ones. Like those were like boss monsters. You would use like so many resources to summon like Borreload, like dragon, and just in the extra monster zone with not really much else to go off of. It was a very like strange time. But then as more and more Links were printed and the better and better they got, like life changed.
Now here's the thing. That was only the case in the TCG. In the OCG, again, and I don't know if this is some kind of a conspiracy theory, they got Crystron pretty early.
Yeah. And Cherubini.
They got Cherubini
we had to wait a long time
pretty early. And I remember everyone used to be like, oh, Cherubini next set, Crystron next set. We've got Crystron Hacklefibrax, I think 1 week, a single week before Master Rule 4 ended. The OCG had it the entire time. We got it a week before it ended. Who planned that? How do you get away with that? It's a mess. No one synchro summoned for 3 years. No one synchro summoned. Synchro summoning was the worst. No one even thought about synchro summoning for 3 years because Kriston Hacklefibrax wasn't in the game. It was in the game in the OCG. They had Verde Anaconda. They had everything. They had all of those different mechanics from all of those packs. No one XYZ summoned for the most part. Almost no one Synchro summoned. They were all of the older mechanics were almost dead because they just decided to warp the meta around Link summoning. And of course, like I said, I think Kriston was probably the most heinous offense. Yeah. It was in Japan. It was in the OCG since 2017. It came out in the TCG in 2020. How do you screw that up? You couldn't slip it in there in any of the sets. When they were making that scramble card, the egg scramble, you couldn't make that a Kriston Hacklefibrax. Like, what was the reason they didn't release that card in the TCG? Like, name a reason. It's not like Synchros would have been broken.
Yeah.
Like, name a reason. I can't. I don't know. See, they do stuff like that. That's weird. We got a lot of them a lot later. They would have, remember they had the Vrains packs? In the OCG, they would have like Vrains packs, and they would have like 20 new Link monsters. And then we just get them throughout like different core sets randomly.
Mm-hmm.
It was really random. So that's one of the things that kind of held back the Link format. But overall, with the state of today, it's crazy.
Another thing was like there's a lot of archetypes that like they got like Link monsters that didn't really need Link monsters, like Bujinki got like a Link monster. They don't really need one. But then like some archetypes like they run generic Link monsters, but they do a lot better if they had something, you know, for them, like the legacy, like the main trio legacy, you know, like Red Eyes, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician. They never had a Link monster, but they run a bunch of generic Link monsters. But if they got a Link monster, it did something for their decks, you know, it'd be pretty good instead of running like, you know, like Artemis and Link Karibos and Striker Dragons, you know.
There's a lot of decks that could really use a Link monster. A generic Link 1, Link 2. So a lot of Link 2s are broken, and they had to be, because again, they shut down every other mechanic. So you had to create cards to help the other mechanics. You had Verde Anaconda to help you fusion summon, because you could only fusion summon to basically a zone an extra monster pointed to. You needed Kriston to help you Synchro summon, because again, in a Synchro deck, you had to put resources into summoning a Link monster first. So a lot of the Link 2s are all broken. And then you're right, it's like a lot of these archetypes that really need one don't have any Link monsters. And then you have things like Trap Tricks. Trap Tricks have like 5... How many Link monsters do they have? Trap Trick have like 4 or 5 Link monsters at this point. They're getting a new one again. They all do the same damn thing. The only good one is Sarah, and they keep giving them more and more Link monsters. They don't need any more Link monsters.
Honestly, I can't imagine getting rid of Sarah.
Sarah is the only one that's good. That's the best Trap Trick card that they ever released, and that's the only one they need. They don't need any more Link monsters. It's over. Let it happen. Let it roll. They just keep releasing more and more Link monsters for Trap Trick. What's another one? Sky Striker. It's a Link deck, but it's just endless. It's like, how many Link monsters do they get? They've already got, what, like 5, 6? All Link 1s?
Yeah.
And there's other archetypes that don't have anything going on.
Yeah, you just have to run just generic ones. And they're good, but like, you know, having like an archetype one just pushes the deck. Look at Spirals. Spirals got a Link monster that did something for their deck.
It changed everything.
Yeah, it was tier 0.
It went from like tier 5 to tier 0 because of one Link monster. It's incredible. Again, if Konami wants to push a certain deck, they can push any deck they want. Konami, you think of the worst deck. What's the worst deck you can think of right now? Daigusto?
No, not Daigusto.
Gusto? Like Gusto?
Gusto. Just regular
Think of Gusto. Regular. They can make Gusto tier 0 tomorrow. They can do it. They can do whatever they want. They can make it so you summon a monster on your opponent's board, and turn 1, it's mandatory. It has to attack into a Gusto monster. And then every time they die, you just summon more and more, and you burn your opponent for damage with the Synchro monster. They can make tomorrow. Name another bad archetype. Laval. They can make Laval broken tomorrow. Bring back Laval Chain. Make it in archetype. Make it like a Zodiac where you can summon any Laval monster and go into it. Not once per turn. They can make any archetype they want broken. They can make any summoning mechanic broken whenever they want to. It is really up to them, and this is just, we're just rating this based on what they've decided to make broken. Lynx, not only do they nerf every other summoning mechanic, but they made Lynx just super generic, and Lynx have basically replaced Xseed, generic Xseed monsters, because the first generic monsters, extra deck monsters, were fusions through the use of like Metamorphosis. Obviously, Metamorphosis got banned, and most of the fusions are now locked into whatever archetype they're in, unless you're using Super Poly. Synchros became the new generic staples, stuff like Armades, Catastor, Goyo Guardian,
before the pre-errata.
Stardust.
Actually, most of the dragons, the 5Ds dragons,
the 5Ds dragons, they all became staples. But then the thing with them is they created an even easier to summoning mechanic, which was Xseed monsters. You didn't have to run tuners or any of that stuff. Xseed basically is just 2 monsters with the same levels. That became even easier. And now you have Link monsters, which are by far the easiest out of all of them. You don't have to have the same levels. You don't have to have tuners. You don't have to have a fusion spell. You don't have to have any of that stuff. It's just 2 monsters. All you need is 2 monsters and you're good to go. You're out the door.
Unless specified.
Unless specified. Sometimes they need like a dark monster. Sometimes they need an effect monster. But for the most part,
they actually make it easier because they make it like 2+ monsters, including at least 1.
Yeah.
So it's like you just throw it in there. You just have at least one of them. The rest of it doesn't matter.
Yep. It's the most generic, and therefore it's the best. Now for the last one here, we've got unions. This is a bonus. We actually forgot this one. We actually remembered midway through filming this.
So delete those comments now.
Unions are interesting. They've been meta relevant once. Pretty much once. And it's the ABC deck.
Twice if you count speed duels.
Twice if you count speed duels, yes. But basically, unions have essentially, and they got nerfed in speed duels. I don't know if you know this.
That's unfortunate.
They got nerfed. They got nerfed bad in speed duels because you have to, when you use their skill, you have to put a card to the bottom of your deck. And now you can't discard to use the effect of the fusions, of course. So, again, this is another one that's weird. ABC Buster Dragon is actually another perfect example of
a cheating fusion.
Of a cheating a fusion, where you can banish materials from your graveyard to fusion summon a monster. How the hell is that? But to be fair, that's more of a fusion than Thunder Dragon Colossus still. Because at least you're getting rid of the 3 monsters in your graveyard. Yes, it's in your graveyard, so technically it shouldn't be fair. But it's still like...
It's like a contact fusion from the graveyard.
It's a contact fusion from the graveyard, and then it tributes quick effect to summon the materials back out anyway. Crazy. But yeah, it's only been meta relevant once, ever. But that's more than Gemini, and that's more than Spirits. It's only been meta relevant one single time. It's basically the ABC deck. Every other time that they've tried to create union decks, it's pretty much been bad. Recently, they created a deck that is similar, very similar to unions, which is the Therions. Yes. They equip themselves to monsters, but for some reason they do not call themselves unions, which is weird. It seems like a waste. There's no reason. I don't see a reason why those were not union monsters. They're essentially union monsters.
I don't know. It's strange because it's like an effect to equip.
Unions are effects to equip.
No, but they themselves are not the equip. They equip other monsters. So like Regulus, you equip any machine. Like Cyber Dragon's not an equip monster. It's not a union, but you're equipping that. So it's just weird. But you can equip, like monsters that have effects when equipped. Yeah. As long as you have the right type. Like Regulus works extremely well with ABCs. But ABCs are just extremely good in general.
They're a good archetype. They're good with different things. Yeah. They're good with Synchro summoning. They're good with Link summoning. They're good with Xyz summoning. If they hit the graveyard, they get their effect.
No, I don't think they're good with Xyz. Because they have to be sent from field to grave, I think.
It's still good enough. You get them in grave, you can still summon ABC Buster Dragon.
You get the pluses.
You still get ABC Buster Dragon.
You don't get the pluses. It's not the same.
You can still draw 2, discard with Tsukiyomi. Bujinki Tsukiyomi. You can still do a lot with them.
It's fair. But even still, it's not enough. It's better. I think it'd be better to, Synchro, make big monsters. Lynx, make boss monsters. Actually, We've got another broken link too that was banned. Union Carrier.
Oh, Yugioh Carrier. That
Union-
was another one. Again,
Union's got their own like link monster. However, it wasn't really that like crazy in Unions as it was in other decks.
it was good. Don't get me wrong. It was
Yeah,
good in
yeah.
Unions. But the problem is it was just so generic. It was better than other decks.
Yeah.
That was the issue with them. Is Union Carrier was too generic. It let you equip any monster to any monster essentially, and they ended up equipping Buster, doing the Buster Lock, the Destruction, Buster
Yeah,
Dragon,
and any darker dragon deck.
any darker dragon, which the most populous attribute in Yu-Gi-Oh is dark. You can equip that thing to any dark monster.
Yeah.
It only made dark monsters stronger, unfortunately.
And dragons. Dragons are very strong and popular.
Yeah, Union Carrier you can bring back tomorrow, as long as you put some sort of restriction on it. You
Yeah.
have to. I mean, that's the only way. You have to do it. That's the other thing. Here's another archetype that's weird, right? So unions, Inzectors could have been unions. Inzectors could have easily have been union monsters, but they weren't. They're essentially union monsters. They equip themselves to each other, and then they have different effects to pop, to summon. Why are they not union monsters?
It's strange.
It's like they gave up on that mechanic. They literally they made it in Magician's Force, which was very many years ago, and then they decided to support it essentially a few more times after that, and then they supported it one more time in the ABC Buster Dragon deck, and since then they basically gave up on it. And there's decks that could have been like Inzectors should be a union deck. As far as I can see, it's a union deck. Inzectors, maybe Therions. Again, it's
Yeah,
we
it's
had
a
this
little
discussion.
strange. Yeah.
But Inzectors should have, in a lot of ways, should have just been a union deck. They essentially do the same thing. There's cards that might as well be union cards, which are, for example, the Black Metal Dragon.
Yeah.
Black Metal Dragon has almost the exact same effect as a union monster.
And then what's it called? And it would have made these cards better to be unions because they lose nothing from it,
Yeah,
but they also can be searched off of Union Hanger
exactly. Because then you can search Union Hanger, Black Metal Dragon off of Union Hanger.
or any of the Inzectors.
Yep. They have a new Sky Striker monster that has a quick effect to equip itself to a Sky Striker monster, and then it gains 400 attack. It's not a great card, but that should be a union monster.
Yeah.
That is the textbook definition of a union monster. A union monster is just basically a monster that can equip itself from the field to another monster. That's it. That's all they are. They are two monsters that create a union. They basically combine, and that's basically the entire thing. It's a simple concept.
Another thing about it that I just remembered is that like some of the monsters we the name like Black Metal Dragon, they can equip from the hand. Like the older Union monsters, you get to summon the first one and then like summon the other one and then manually like equip it. It was a very like weird thing. It was very extremely slow.
Again, they just choose when to break mechanics when they want to.
Yeah.
Union Carrier basically breaks that. On normal summon, you can equip anything you want from the deck. You can summon it right out. They give each other protection. When they hit the graveyard, they have additional effects. They choose when to break mechanics when they want to.
Yep.
But yeah, Union, I think, is probably either D or C tier. They just don't support it. Like, they just don't.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? They don't give it any support. Like, technically speaking, it's better right now than Flip Effects. So I'd probably put it in C tier just because ABC is basically carrying the entire
Union
like
carrying.
they are basically ABCs are basically carrying all of like the entire Union summoning mechanic essentially by on their back by themselves. Like no one else. It's just them.
Yeah, and then all the like the XYZ guys, like they look really cool, but they're
Not
pretty
good enough.
bad. And then they had like the VW or whatever.
Yeah, they're all one big family.
Yeah, but they're
Not good enough.
pretty
And then you have the
bad.
Ojamas mixed in with that.
Oh, yeah.
As if it wasn't more difficult enough. But yeah, this is basically that's basically it for the summoning mechanics. Final thoughts. Konami can break whatever summoning mechanic they want to at the drop of a hat.
Honestly, it's not even about breaking them. Sometimes just making them just a little better, a little.
Yeah, I would
just
actually.
a little bit faster to keep up with today's pace.
I would rather them not break summoning mechanics.
Yeah.
I'd rather when a fusion is a combination of two monsters. It's not a runic quick play spell that summons one from the deck, from the extra deck I meant to say. It's not Thunder Dragon Colossus. It's not Zodiacs. It's not Christian Hyclofibrox summoning monster from the extra deck. I'd rather them just make it easier to summon the monsters the way they were intended to be summoned in the first place.
You know what I also remembered? For links, Argopane cheated out any dragon monster.
Argopane, yeah, it's a fair one.
Cheated out literally any
dragon monster from the extra deck.
XY, I don't know why you would, but XYZ, Fusion, Synchro.
That's the only reason. That's the one of the very rare times they actually use Synchro monsters.
Yeah, actually, because actually,
because you could just cheat it out.
Realistically, there's only two options you would summon. It was either Crystal Wing or Hot Red.
Yeah, that was one of the only times where they actually summoned Synchro monsters during Master Rule.
Yeah, and they cheated them out.
They would sometimes they make Borreload Savage, because you need to summon a Link first.
Oh yeah, but Borderland Savage, he's just like, I don't know, he's like a weird guy. He's like on Synchro's team, but he's like leaning towards Links.
Yeah, you need to play him in a Link deck anyway. But that is basically it. That's all of them. If you think there's any suggestions, or if there are any others that you would want to see, any other tier lists, let me know in the comment section down below. And thank you for watching.
La 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 la.